Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to this week's episode of the Variety Show. We are from the Niche Cache, the niche-cache.com, where you can read all sorts of insights, nuggets, bits and pieces about Aotearoa sport, fresh yarns we've got on our website at the moment, plenty of football Ferns coverage, wrapping up their World Cup campaign. We've also got a deep look into the New Zealand Warriors' young emerging talent, as well as a Kiwi-NRL spotlight on Adam Pompey. That's live. We'll have Flying Kiwis live as well. There's all sorts of sports. Let's just say that. All sorts of sporting stuff you can read. And of course, we welcome you to the Niche Cache interwebs. We're everywhere that we need to be. On Twitter, Instagram, we've got the clips, the Kiwi Sports clips on Twitter and Instagram, as well as YouTube. And our weekly menu basically looks like this. On a Monday, we drop our newsletter via Substack. That is a Monday and a Friday activity, summing up our Niche Cache Kiwi Sports beats with all sorts of bits of information. Tuesday, which is today, the day of recording, we record our subscriber podcast. This goes out to Patreon and people with a paid Substack subscription. Those are the best ways to support the Niche Cache directly through your generous donations. And we do a subscriber pod every Tuesday for Patreon and paid Substack subscribers. Tuesday also has the Variety Show. We come back on a Thursday with the Niche Cast, which is a bigger, longer podcast. And of course, we're back on a Friday with the Friday newsletter via Substack. So we deliver all our content through those channels. There are ways you can support the Niche Cache directly through Patreon and Substack. Otherwise, just subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and check out the website, theniche-cache.com, regularly. Maybe you don't need to do that every day, but regularly. Maybe every second day, just tune in, bookmark it, tell a friend. We are here to celebrate Aotearoa sport in all its glory, as we are, I'd say, KG for KG. We're one of the best footballing nations in the world, let alone how good we are at other sports as well. So we're just here to celebrate and broadcast Aotearoa's sporting excellence. You can find all the links you need in the descriptions to the YouTube video, as well as the podcast on your Apple, Spotify, however you're listening to the podcast. Big up yourself, and big up to all the Patreon whānau, those with a paid Substack subscription. There is that subscriber podcast for you to enjoy as well. We're going to roll through some Aotearoa sporting notes in our Variety Show. Bit of a buffet, bit of a smorgasbord, as it always is. But first, we need some mindfulness. I will let you do your mindfulness, but I do also, when dealing with sadness, when dealing with pain and suffering, you got to deploy gratitude. That is the easiest way, just to flip a scenario from dark arts to the light. Just deploy some gratitude, and I'm grateful for Football Ferns defense. I'm grateful for the Football Ferns being who they are as a real gritty, rugged, hard mahi Kiwi sports team, and their strength is their defense, and I'm grateful for the Football Ferns. Generally, I'm also grateful for Football Ferns defense. But you got some actual mindfulness for us. So what do you got?
Well, this isn't the mindfulness, but KG for KG, as you're saying, Football Ferns defense and all that. Aotearoa, third smallest country by population at this World Cup, only missed out on making the knockouts by an air's width of an offside call. So that's pretty. I'm pretty grateful for
smallest
that
nations.
kind of. I can't remember the. I know Jamaica is one of them. And if I see it, I'll think of it immediately, but I can't think what it is off the top of my head right now. But, I was surprised to see Vietnam has like 100 million people or something ridiculous. Like, they're actually one of the most populous nations, and there's a few, China's got 1 billion people. I don't know that they're better than us, There you go. But anyway, I felt like a bit of a Marcus Aurelius kind of stoicism day. So I got a quote here from Meditations. If you've seen the present, then you've seen everything. As it's been since the beginning, as it will be forever, the same substance, the same form, all of it.
There's no anxiety or depression in the present either. Because anxiety
Yeah,
is
you're
when
right.
you're
Yeah.
anxiety is when you're drifting off into the future. Depression is when you're drifting back into the past. But when you're in the present moment, those things don't exist because you're just enjoying the present moment.
And as things are, so they always were and always will be, and all that kind of thing as well. Like it's stuff doesn't really change, you know. Even though everything has changed in a way, when everything has changed, nothing has changed because you just zoom out far enough and see, like, well, it's the change is also the same. You know, the fact that things are changing is the same. Like that's a roundabout way of kind of trying to say it, but like it's just there's just stuff that like the essence of the world is kind of just the same as it always was. It's just people's ways of approaching it or dealing with it is the thing that starts to make everything look different, you know. Certainly human nature, I'm convinced of this. I think human nature is the same as it's always been. I bet the cavemen had the same impulses as we do now, and nothing has changed except for the context.
We did elaborate on the football ferns, and we did actually highlight the emerging attacking talent on offer to the football ferns in our subscriber podcast, as well as a deeper dive into just the general young wave of footballers in Aotearoa and some audio companionship to my Warriors breakdown about their development and youngster bracket. But to start the variety show in the Kiwi Sports section, how have you boiled down your football ferns thoughts and feelings and ideas?
Yeah, well, that's definitely definitely what I've got here written in my notes. It's just a boiled down version of that. I guess it's in a sentence, they're out. They didn't make it into the knockout rounds, but at the same time, I just find it hard not to be excited about the team rather than, you know, despairing about what could have been or where they let it go, or, you know, not getting that result against the Philippines. All I feel from that effort from the football ferns across those 3 games, like everything taken into, including the preparation and the lead in and all this guy and the direction that they seem to be heading in, it just seems everything is so much clearer than it was 4 years ago. Like I think about where they were in 2019, where Tom Samani didn't know if he was going to still be the coach after that World Cup. He was only there on like a short-term deal to clean up basically after they had the whole Haraf dramas and the team was in a shambles there, and New Zealand football was in a shambles there, which is what was passed along to the team. And basically the football ferns, I think this is a forgotten aspect in their history. They kind of saved New Zealand football. Like it was the football, that was the players in the football ferns revolting that ended up getting rid of like Andy Martin, which led to the end of like Anthony Hudson and getting all these crusty English fellas who coming in, given like colonial politics to New Zealand football, started, you know, putting things at least pointing in the right direction, if not entirely all the way there or anything. That was the football ferns who did that for us, and this was the football ferns delivering their best ever World Cup, like the golden win against Norway. That was the glorious moment when they united an entire country. For at least one day, they turned Aotearoa into a footballing nation. It was beautiful. That will have ramifications long into the future with the inspiration. That single game alone, even just that single goal alone, like those 2 moments, the goal from Hannah Wilkinson and then the final whistle and the celebrations thereafter, you know. Draw against Switzerland, also pretty good result for a team like New Zealand. That is no mean feat. That's a clean sheet against a top 20 ranked nation. Some like extremely outstandingly talented players in that Swiss team. Leah Volti, I thought, was absolutely brilliant in that game, just like controlling things at the base of midfield for them. Took her out of that game, we might have actually, you know, might have created a few more chances than we did, but even still, a draw, it's a pretty good result. Like that is nothing to be scoffed at. Yes, they blew the Philippines game, but I think that's just where they're at. You know, that's just an accurate reflection of the team that the football ferns are. They are good enough to spring a upset result against Norway, but they're not necessarily good enough to guarantee a victory against a lower ranked team like Philippines. They do have some vulnerabilities, and Philippines played on that, unfortunately, and it's very easy to see what the main one of those is. The main vulnerability, just the same issue that we knew they had coming into the World Cup, just a lack of goals, lack of creativities. It's yeah, we just don't have the players, basically. Like to put it nice and simply, it's not a tactical thing, it's not a coaching, it's not performance. It's just that they're not quite like the talent isn't quite there in that specific aspect. Philippines just sat in a deep block. They asked New Zealand to win that game by doing the thing that they're worst at doing, which is breaking down a set defensive shape, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Similar against the Swiss as well. Organized defense left New Zealand just feeling like didn't quite have the edge. Like the set piece delivery wasn't quite good enough to put it in the exact right spot. They didn't have like the pace and athleticism and the skill combined in any play. We've got players who have one or two of those things. We don't necessarily have all of those things combined to where someone can just burst past a defender one-on-one and create something individual brilliance. Like we don't really have that. And that's it's frustrating because you're watching that game being like, we know we need a goal to win, but New Zealand just didn't. I remember saying this out loud watching the end of the Swiss game, being like, this just isn't as nervous as the Norway game because I don't think we're going to score a goal. Norway, I thought the Norway game, I thought Norway might score a goal, so I'm nervous. I'm sweating. I'm on the edge of my seat, and they're like, "Can we hold on to this thing?" Football Ferns against Switzerland, it just felt like they were running up against a brick wall. It wasn't going to happen, but they tried, and they kept trying over and over and over again. There was unlucky moments, hitting the post. There's the penalty shout for the handball that didn't get given, which I get why it wasn't given, but also I have seen things like that given as well. Like I feel like a different VAR on a different day might have interpreted that another way, kind of thing. Jackie Hand shot off the post is such a what if. There was a great save off of her later on as well, and that's just in the Swiss game, let alone the Philippines game where you get the Hannah Wilkinson offside and the save off Jale that Jackie Hand hit the post in that game as well. It kept happening, and there's bad luck, but there's also this was a team that showed plenty of heart to just continually go at it and keep trying to do, like, they didn't give up. They didn't stop trying. They were pushing it all the way up until the last seconds of the game against Switzerland with Vic Hessen up there attacking corners and weirdly actually getting her head to one. I don't know why people cross it to the goalkeeper in that spot. Like, what do you think the goalkeeper, they don't practice heading. They don't know what they're doing. Vic Hessen won it well, but obviously the header wasn't on target, which is kind of the point. Anyway, that's the journey of how they got to where they are. The feeling I have now, though, is definitely less of the less that this is an ending and more that this is a beginning, which is an interesting point because I wrote that in my article. You also wrote it in your blurb in the Substack thing as well, just completely separate from each other. We both had the same idea about how this isn't so much a blown opportunity as it is the start of a new era for, I would say, women's football, but I'd say just football in general in this country. Although I suppose it could still be both. You could say it's the end of one era and the start of a new one overlapping, I guess. But thinking about it, I'm not sure there's going to be that many Football Ferns retirements. Like, for one thing, there's a Olympics campaign next year, so I wouldn't be. If someone's thinking about retiring, you might wait a year and do that, and then step off. But also, like, Ellie Riley is 35, about to turn 36. She's the only one that's in that specific retirement range. Like, everyone else, even the veterans, they're a bit younger than you think. Like, Betsy Hassett is early 30s, Annalie Longo, same. Rhea Percival, I think, is 33. Like, I don't necessarily see any of them retiring. Maybe Longo because she's not like playing professionally, and I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's the exciting thing now I can't stop thinking about is like some of these players who've had such good tournaments. There's a couple in particular, Jackie Hand, Malia Steinmetz, I think Katie Bowen, Indy Riley. Like, I was going to add CJ Bott in terms of having a great tournament, but not CJ Bott in terms of what I'm going to say about like transfer stuff, because that's the thing that happens next is like, you've had a spotlight, now what happens? Like, Claudia Bunge feels like another one who's ready for a move to a bigger league other than the A-League. Like, the reason I say not CJ Bott is because she's already there. She's already playing for Leicester City in the WSL. She's where these other players are trying to get to. And that, that could happen now off the back of a World Cup. Not to mention new players who are emerging. There'll be Wellington Phoenix signings coming through, and we'll start to see what that squad's going to look like under the new coach. And as we talked about, extended on the what do you call it, the subscriber pod, like it's not just new players coming through, it's also new attacking players. Like the thing that they're lacking is it's on the way. Help is coming. It's just the cavalry hasn't arrived yet. Like Millie Clegg's a bit too young and the other players are of a similar age. It's like we give them some time to get to this point, but it's happening. The pattern is, I think, clear as well with the All Whites team. Like I think on the men's side, you can see the same thing where they've lacked like just like joked on the sub pod as well about how the All Whites lost to Costa Rica and the Football Ferns lost to Philippines. It's almost the same game. Like it was exactly the same how it happened. They'll always have the same problem. And what's happened since then is we've started to see some of these younger attacking players start to filter through into professional football. Some of them already into the All Whites. Like the journey's the same there as well. There's the same pattern is emerging on either side of the two national teams. Like. And yeah, I mean, the other thing as well is the aspect that doesn't apply necessarily specifically to the Football Ferns. Like the last point there, that's the whole state of the Football Ferns moving forward, and it's nothing but excitement in my eyes. But also, it's the buzz that this captured around the country, specifically, I think on the back of like we had a women's cricket World Cup, women's rugby World Cup, women's football World Cup. I think women's sport in general. It's a new era there in this country. I think football in general was moving forward in an exciting way. And there was buzz, there was real buzz about the Football Ferns over the last couple of weeks. They didn't make the knockouts, but I don't know, success takes many forms. And I think this was still very much that.
Beauty. I have been observing that Major League Cricket thing in the USA. There's a bit of a T20 tournament in Canada happening at the same time as well, and both of them feature Kiwis. Fantastic. Who cares? Because Matt Henry has been absolutely dominating cricket in England. I reckon he's the best bowler in domestic cricket in England, because he was the best bowler in the T20 Blast, leading wicket taker, champion, best averages. And right now in county championship cricket, he has 32 wickets and an average of 16.18. He took 6 wickets in his last outing. That was actually in a loss to Surrey. And Tom Latham, he scored 99 runs. That's Tom Latham's third half century of the county championship season. He's averaging 40. And then we have Will Young. Will Young chimed in with a cheeky knock of 87 at a strike rate of 110, which takes Will Young to 299 runs at an average of 60. So they're all doing pretty well in county championship cricket. I don't think many of them are going to be playing in these final rounds, but we'll wait and see. However, all 3 of those dudes are interesting Black Caps ODI World Cup cricketers. Tom Latham's pretty good. He might be the wicketkeeper. Will Young might fill in that Kane Williamson hole. And Matt Henry, certified monster. He's one of the best ODI bowlers from Aotearoa. He's put himself in the test team now, absorbing that Trent Bolt hole. He's got T20 wickets cooking up as well, and he has had an excellent winter. So big up Matt Henry and those lads on the county championship tour. What else you got there? You might have to... I enjoyed your Football Ferns opening stanza. You might have to breeze through these next ones.
Yeah, the next couple ones aren't so much. I kind of combined several ideas into that Football Ferns one. So off we move with a little bit of Tall Blacks, because one World Cup ends, another World Cup is about to begin. This is just this is global sport in 2023. It's World Cups all over the place. It's FIBA Men's World Cup is starting in later this month. It's not very long, and the Tall Blacks are getting very close to that. They've been in camp for a couple of days. They're now over in, I believe, Japan. They're going to play a couple games in Japan, and then they go and play a little tournament in either China or Germany. I can't remember whichever one they do first. They then do the other one next. So they've got 2 little mini tournaments, which is just like semifinals, finals. They're playing like Italy, Canada, Germany, China, after a couple games against Japan. So they're going to get some very good kind of pre-tournament kind of exhibition games, friendlies to really work through their combinations or whatever, and they are going to need to do a little bit of that because we're down to 14 players. So there's two more cuts to follow in order to get to a World Cup squad. But as it stands, they've got 14 players on the traveling squad, and it's not quite full strength. It's not quite what we would have like dreamed of a few months back with the Tall Blacks World Cup squad. Got to admit that. Retirements of Tom Abercrombie and Rob Lowe. Obviously, we know about that. Steven Adams was apparently getting ready to end his international hiatus. At least there were positive talks as far as Pero Cameron mentioned, but I think some of the media scoops suggesting that it was likely to happen is maybe a little bit more telling. However, of course, he busted his knee for the Memphis Grizzlies and hasn't played basketball since like February. So, yeah, that's not happening. Sam Wardenberg also unavailable. Curious what happens there because that was a little bit of a weird one, but it sounded like he was chasing other opportunities, but he'd done the summer league thing already. So I wonder if there's something else happening there or whatever. We'll see how that goes. But he's not playing. And now we've got both the Webster brothers, it's been revealed, will be missing the World Cup due to personal reasons. So hopefully everything's all good there. Don't obviously, out of privacy, no one's going to say what's going on there. But so it goes. As far as the on-court thing goes, it's like Ty Webster, Corey Webster, who, by the way, both came back and played NBL basketball in order to get their match fitness up ahead of Tall Blacks camp. Like they were intending to play the World Cup. This is a bit of a late twist in the tale. They're like starting level players and two of their best scorers, so it's a massive loss to the team. That's frustrating. Ethan Ruspatch, who I don't know if he would have made the top squad, but he got injured, so he wasn't in contention as well. Frankly, that's already a pretty good team of just unavailable players. Like take the best five of that, of like Abercrombie and the two Websters and bit of Wardenberg and Steven Adams. Like that's maybe Rob Lowe swapping in for someone like that. That's a pretty good team. That might be better than the starting five they're able to muster up. Although of course, they're going to have more depth with the squad. And we're one bloke dips, another one climbs. This is just how professional sports operate. So this has actually opened up a couple opportunities for a few others who, a couple months ago might have not felt like they have a shot. That 14-man squad as it stands. So the squad that they're dealing with in these friendly games, and 12 of these players will be at the World Cup. You got Dan Fotu, Finn Delaney, Flynn Cameron, Hiram Harris, Isaac Fotu, Isaiah Liafa, Jordan Natai, Ruben Tarangi, Sam Timmins, Shea Elite, Taylor Britt, Toy Smith-Milner, Walter Brown, and Yanni Wetzel. Still plenty of talent going around there. Like that's still a pretty stacked team. A lot of really solid, not just NBL players, but also guys who have played in Europe and got experience there. A couple of guys who had some very good college careers in there too. Also, I think relatively exciting on the end of that, you will get guys like, I think Walter Brown and Taylor Britta is a good example. Two guys coming off that championship Canterbury Rams squad. They probably wouldn't have expected to make this far. They're two of those guys who fit into that category, but here they are pushing for a place at a World Cup. It's pretty cool. And yeah, a bunch of friendly games coming up. Then they're going to cut up a couple more players. Then they're going to go to the World Cup where they're going to play against USA. They're going to play against Greece and they're going to play against Jordan and they're going to beat them all and they're going to go to the knockouts. They're going to win a few more knockout games. They're going to win the World Cup despite the fact that they don't have Adams or the Websters or Abercrombie or Rob Lowe or any of these guys. Doesn't make a difference. It's All Blacks basketball. And yeah, excited. Looking forward to another World Cup, from one World Cup mode into another one. We're not even in the knockouts of the Women's Football World Cup yet, and already it feels like they're starting to overlap.
Surely no Giannis for Greece, right?
Well, they said he wasn't going to play, and all the American people said he wasn't going to play. And then someone said that he played a scrimmage game against Croatia and had 60 points and 40 rebounds or something like that. So I don't know if that's made up or I didn't look into it, but it sounds like there is still a possibility he will play and be incredible. But hopefully, I don't know, give him a kick in the knee or something in the first game. He's obviously got something.
He just had surgery. Yeah, he had surgery. So definitely whack his knee and see what happens. Some NRL notes here. Busy weekend of rugby league. No Warriors. That's why I did the deep dive into the Warriors, because there was no Warriors NRL. There was no Warriors New South Wales Cup. So this was a great time of year, time of the season to really dive into that stuff. The Knights had a good win. As we discussed in the subscriber podcast, the Knights have been very busy in Kiwi-NRL recruitment, but their 2 NRL lads right now came from other teams. Greg Marzhew arrived from the Titans, and Leo Thompson, who I've talked a lot about over the last 2 years. He is fantastic. He is just a solid starting prop. He came from the Raiders, and he still looks a lot like James Fisher-Harris. He's eased up on the, they had a lot of like passing shape set up for Leo Thompson because he was a midfielder in rugby union. Obviously, twin brother Tyrone is a hooker in rugby union. So he does have a passing skill set, but right now he is a physical presence running and tackling. And I've really enjoyed how much he whacks in defense these days. That's impressive. Knights are winning. A lot of Leo Thompson and Greg Marzhew funk. Titans also had a win. It was a good weekend for the Titans because they had a win in NRLW, which I'll touch on in a second as well. But good weekend for the Titans. Isaac Liu and Aaron Clark, 2 South Aucklanders there from Otahu and Manurewa. They were on fire in the forward pack for the Titans. And Kieran Foran. Like, if we're big up in Sean Johnson for his career resurgence and all that stuff, Kieran Foran's pretty damn good as well. Kieran Foran, if we're talking Aotearoa Kiwis halves, it's still Kieran Foran, it's still Jerome Hughes, it's Sean Johnson. Dylan Brown has a bit of ground to make up there, but if you're going into Aotearoa Kiwis Rugby League and you've got 3 halves by the name of Foran, Johnson, Hughes competing for slots, that's pretty damn impressive. And the best teams in the NRL, Panthers, Broncos, Storm. I love these teams. I love their Kiwi NRL involvement. Panthers, you've got the starting props, Leota, Fisher-Harris. You've got Scott Sorensen on an edge. Broncos, they have Jordan Ricky's out injured now. You might get a bit of Jesse Arthurs here and there, but right now the Broncos thing, you've got Dean Mariner impressing as a winger. Outside back, we've talked a lot about him, Maris Jr. from Auckland, and Xavier Willison still getting some minutes in the middle. He is massive. He's from the Waikato region, and he is really good. Melbourne Storm, they're flush. Kiwi NRL talent. Will Warbrick is on fire. I mentioned Jerome Hughes. Asafa Solomona didn't really play, I don't think, against the Eels, but you still got Alec MacDonald as well. He's a very interesting player, true blue Storm rugby league player. He's originally from Auckland. But the thing I want to highlight here about those 3 teams is they each have a really interesting Kiwi NRL junior to watch out for. Panthers, you've got Deon Amatuanai, Whiti Te Raa Jr., which I think is Otaki down in Manawatu, Horowhenua region. He played 11 games of New South Wales Cup last year, 9 tries. This season, he's played 14 games in New South Wales Cup, and he's also scored 9 tries. He is being brewed as the next Panthers winger. Big up to him. The Broncos, they've got one of the Fa'atili brothers. I've always mentioned Felix Fa'atili, who just scores tries for fun in the Cronulla Sharks system. Scored a bunch of tries in SG Ball. He's still scoring tries in Jersey Flegg for the Sharks. He's from Hornby, Christchurch. Older brother Caius Fa'atili delivered one of the most impressive stat lines I've ever seen. On the weekend, playing reserve grade for Wynnum. 37 minutes, 16 runs, 221 meters at 13.8 meters per run. 37 minutes, 16 runs, 9 tackles. That's crazy. But it might tell you about the game. But he averaged 13.8 meters per run on 16 runs. That's because he is massive. And his younger brother Felix is also massive. Curious to see how Caius Fa'atili, Hornby Jr. from Christchurch, how he develops in the Broncos system, if he does progress through the Broncos system, because they also have a lot of talent. Last one is Melbourne Storm. They have another player from Christchurch, funnily enough, KC Newton-Whare. He is a Riccarton Jr., and he left Christchurch to go to the Gold Coast region. He played for Burleigh. He played under 18s and under 21s for Burleigh last year. He goes down to the Melbourne Storm. He plays SG Ball and Jersey Flegg this year. So he was playing under 19s for the Storm earlier this year. Now he's playing under 20s, 21s, I think it is, Jersey Flegg. He's played 13 games already. He's a big bopper in the middle for the Melbourne Storm. So if you're thinking Xavier Willison, you got the Fa'atili brothers as well. Casey Newton-Whare. All three of them are from Christchurch, and they are big boppers through the middle. What else you got?
Well, my last bit here is about how, as we know, thanks to the football Ferns specifically, that win against Norway, New Zealand is now a football nation. It's not only a football nation, it's also a rugby league nation, it's a cricket nation, it's a combat sports, basketball, all these various other things. It's not a rugby and netball nation specifically. So get that one nice and clear. And while I, like many people, have been absolutely in like neck deep with the Women's World Cup stuff going on, just a spotlight here on the other football stuff that is happening, not just at the moment, but over the rest of the year. For example, Wellington Phoenix, the blokes, they're actually playing on Friday, believe it or not. They got their Aussie Cup game on Friday against I can't remember who they're playing, but it's against the NPL team that actually went on a bit of a run last year. They both these teams made the quarterfinals last year, but first opportunity to see the Wellington Phoenix with Giancarlo Italiano as the new head coach. Meanwhile, the women's team, they signed Rebecca Lake last week, first new signing from outside last year's squad, unless you count Emma Main, who was an injury replacement. He's now got a full deal, but they're putting their team together. Expect to see a lot more of that. Expect to see a lot more of transfer stuff in general. It's a very exciting aspect of the post-World Cup stuff for the football Ferns, is like which players now move on to bigger professional deals, who make that step up in their career. A lot of players at the stepping stone A-League level. Well, it's a stepping stone for a reason, because other like bigger leagues take very close scouting, attention, pays very close scouting attention to that league. Malia Steinmetz, Grace Jale, is Katie Bowen, even, maybe even Hannah Wilkinson. Like, there's a bunch of these, Indy Riley, a bunch of these players, Claudia Bunge, I could keep going, like, who have been set, established A-League players ready for that next move. Not to mention, I mean, the Flying Kiwis blokes. This has just been going on for months. Like the other day, Tommy Smith signed with Milton Keynes Dons. New deal right there for a veteran. Like at the other end of the scale, like Marley Luluai joining Burnley's under-18s team, or Jamie Searle moving, like an up-and-coming goalkeeper, moving to Forest Green. This has just been detailed for weeks now in the Flying Kiwis yards. Like the transfers do not stop. I actually put a list of a bunch of them in the Substack thing the other day. That's still happening. And then after, of course, once you've made the transfers, you get to start like breaking into that team and actually playing. So recently, like, Sarpreet Singh and Marco Stamanic debuted for their new clubs over the weekend, and their first official action for them. Callum McCow the week before. Like, this is all going on. You got Zach Jones doing heroic stuff in the UEFA Europa Conference League, the third tier league there. Not to mention domestic stuff. Plenty of that going on. Kate Shepherd Cup semi-finals are coming up in 2 weeks. I think you got Eastern Suburbs against Wellington United, and you've got, let me just check, Western Springs against Coastal Spirit. We also just had the quarterfinals of the Chatham Cup, so I don't think they've done the draw yet, but the 4 semi-finalists there, Eastern Suburbs, made it at both Cup semi-finals. Fair play to them. Along with Christchurch United, Melville United, and Waterside Karori. They're your 4 Chatham Cup finalists. Obviously, we're nearing the end of the winter seasons. National League qualification has gone down. National League itself will be happening soon. There's an under-17 World Cup for the boys coming up in November. We've just had under-19s World Cup qualifying for the women like a month or two ago. Busy, busy, busy times for the footballing nation of Aotearoa.
In case you don't know about Aotearoa's sporting excellence, the women are also really good at rugby league. Let's start with Alexis Tawaniai, who plays for a good Dragons team. Dragons had a win over the weekend. She's 18 years old. She's from Wainoia-Mata, and she played 52 minutes in her first game of NRLW, 46 minutes in her second game of NRLW, 18 years old, averaging 121 meters per game with 95% tackling. You want another one? How about Otara? Anessa Biddle from Otara. First season of NRLW, she's averaging 182 meters per game. Another player from Otara, Leanne Tufunga, 21 years old. She's in her third season of NRLW. She's averaging 162 meters per game. Her Tigers had a win against Anessa Biddle's Sharks. Your Dragons are pretty good in NRLW, Nico the Wildcard. Cortez Tapo, first season of NRLW, debut, 2 tries. Dragons also have the Kiwi New Zealand halves combination, Racine McGregor, Tyler Nathan Wong. Tyler Nathan Wong's looking really good as well. We've also got the Raiders. The Raiders had a really funky, enjoyable win. They're full of players from Aotearoa. Their whole left edge, Api Nichols sweeping over the left. Shael Robbins-Reti, left centre. Madison Bartlett, left winger. Mackenzie Wiki, she's on the right side. She is really good as well. Powerful centre. And of course, I mentioned the Titans. They defeated the Broncos with Georgia Hale doing her standard excellent mahi as a lock forward. And Niall Williams-Guthrie had her best game, setting up the her winger outside her. Interesting battle with Gail Broughton, former Black Ferns Sevens players. I did a NRLWahine Team of the Week, which is a regular occurrence in our Monday newsletter. Most of these players mentioned were in that Team of the Week. Also had Capri Paikel from the Eels. She's a hooker. And Aneta Nu'uasala starting prop. So we've got the elite players. We've got the young players. We got the depth. It's Aotearoa sport. It's across every sport. If you're wondering about the football Ferns and where they're heading, same direction all these other teams are heading and where all these other sports are heading, with just the quality of depth on offer. Musical jam. Given the theme of this podcast and Aotearoa's excellence and the pure Aotearoa vibe, I got to go with Stinky Jim. And it's not a new project because he released a remix project recently, which then put me in touch with the first project, Spatial Awareness, which is absolutely disgusting roots reggae from Aotearoa. So big up Stinky Jim. I do love some dub reggae rooty music because it is the national sound of Aotearoa. Praise Ja Aotearoa. What's your musical jam selection for this week? Reminder to anyone who cares, we'll have our monthly album reviews out, of which Stinky Jim's Spatial Awareness will be one of those reviews.
And also, I think the Guardian Singles album will find its way in there as well, which is, you know, Kiwi sort of indie rock band. And the album came out, what's it called? It's called it's Feed Me to the Doves, it's called. Those hungry doves. That one's pretty cool. I'm quite liking that. I need to listen to it a little bit more, but that'll find its way into the write-ups. It came out a couple of weeks ago, but I'm only just getting around to it now as I sort of compile my albums of the month selections, my contributions. Looking through some of this, what else might pop up there? Maybe the PJ Harvey album. I got to give that one another go through. We'll see how that goes. Slack Eye Slim was a cool one. The Call to War one will be there for sure. Molly Tuttle maybe. Oxbow's got a new album. There's some good stuff there going on. As there is every month. There's always an abundance of music. It always like bugs me a little bit when people say there's no good music done anymore. It's like, well, do you know where to look? Because there's more music, full stop. So by definition, there should be more good music as well.
Thankfully, I saved my my coughs there for the final moments of the podcast. Hopefully you're right around Aotearoa. Celebrate the football Ferns. We're grateful for the football Ferns. We're moving forward. We've got another World Cup, Tall Blacks World Cup coming up. Lots of Aotearoa sporting excellence on offer. And of course, if you are more interested in women's football, there's no shortage of players around the world doing the football Ferns thing, let alone Wellington Phoenix women as well. Big up yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.